such a blessing that I get to spend time with you again, kiddo. I've got a great story for you tonight, so go ahead and relax. Tonight's story is about a man who never asked to be loud. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't demand attention. He didn't try to become a symbol. And yet, history found him anyway. His name was Hank Aaron, and for much of his life, he carried more weight than any bat ever could. Henry Louis Aaron was born on February 5, 1934, in Mobile, Alabama, a city shaped by heat, labor, and strict lines that told people where they could stand and where they could not. Hank grew up in a segregated South where opportunities were narrow and expectations were lower than they should have been. His family was poor, not in a dramatic way, in the quiet way that meant making do, fixing things instead of replacing them, and understanding early that nothing would be handed to you. Baseball entered Hank's life without ceremony. He learned to hit by swinging at bottle caps with a stick. He taught himself how to generate power, not from size, but from timing. Even as a boy, his swing was compact and efficient. He didn't look like a future legend. He looked like a kid who liked to hit. What separated Hank Aaron early wasn't flash. It was repetition. He swung constantly. He watched the ball. He learned how to wait just a fraction longer than other hitters. That patience would become the foundation of everything he accomplished later. When Hank joined the Negro Leagues, playing for the Indianapolis Clowns, he entered a world of long bus rides, inconsistent pay, and relentless travel. The conditions were harsh, but the competition was real. The Clowns weren't just entertainers. They were a proving ground. Hank proved himself quickly. In 1952, Hank Aaron signed with the Boston Braves, who would soon move to Milwaukee. Like Jackie Robinson before him, Hank entered organized baseball knowing that talent alone would not protect him. Spring training in the South meant segregated hotels, restaurants that refused service, and long stretches of quiet endurance. Hank did not respond with anger. He responded with consistency. He showed up. He played well. He went home. In 1954, Hank Aaron made his major league debut. That same season, a teammate named Bobby Thompson hit a dramatic home run that captured national attention. Hank watched from the sidelines, learning what the spotlight could do to a man. He did not chase it. He chased contact. What followed was one of the most consistent careers in the history of sports. Hank Aaron didn't dominate by having one incredible season. He dominated by having 20 good ones in a row. Year after year, he hit. Year after year, he showed up. Year after year, he stayed healthy, focused, and productive. This consistency is easy to overlook in a world that celebrates explosions. But consistency is harder. By the late 1960s, Hank Aaron was already one of the greatest hitters baseball had ever seen. He had won a batting title. He had driven in runs. He had helped the Braves win a World Series in 1957. But something else was happening quietly. The numbers were adding up. Hank Aaron never talked much about records. He did not campaign for attention. He did not predict milestones. But the math did not care about personality. Home run after home run accumulated. And slowly, inevitably, he approached a number that baseball treated as sacred. 714. The record held by Babe Ruth. At first, it felt distant. Then it felt possible. Then it felt dangerous. As Hank Aaron moved closer to Ruth's record, the tone around him changed. The letters began to arrive. Some were supportive. Many were not. Threats appeared. Hate revealed itself plainly. The FBI became involved. Security followed him. And still, Hank Aaron did what he had always done. He showed up. He swung. He went home. This is where Hank Aaron's story becomes something more than baseball. Because breaking records is one thing. Breaking them while absorbing hatred quietly is something else entirely. Chapter 2. Chasing 714. Fear, Letters, and the Longest Season. By the early 1970s, Hank Aaron was no longer just a great baseball player. He was a moving target. Every swing now carried meaning beyond the game. Every home run narrowed the distance between himself and a record many Americans believed belonged to someone else forever. Babe Ruth's 714 home runs were more than a number. They were mythology. Ruth represented an era that baseball had wrapped in nostalgia and reverence. And for decades, his record stood untouched, not just because it was difficult, but because it felt symbolic. Hank Aaron did not fit that symbol in the eyes of many. As the numbers climbed, so did the attention. Newspapers tracked every home run. Broadcasters counted them aloud. Fans began bringing signs to ballparks, marking down the remaining distance. At first, it was celebratory. Then, it became tense. The mail began to change. Hank Aaron received thousands of letters as he chased Ruth's record. Many were encouraging, words of pride, admiration, gratitude. But mixed among them were threats, explicit, violent threats. Some promised harm, others promised death. They came daily, sometimes hourly. He read them all. The FBI opened a file. Security became routine. Hank Aaron, a man who had never sought attention, now lived with guards and protocols simply for doing his job well. What makes this part of his story especially heavy is how little he spoke about it at the time. He did not hold press conferences. He did not make speeches. He did not lash out. He internalized it. Later in life, Aaron would say that the pressure nearly ruined baseball for him. Not because of the physical demands, those he understood, but because of the emotional weight. The realization that excellence itself could provoke hatred was a lesson he never wanted to learn. And yet, he kept playing. The 1973 season became one of the most emotionally exhausting years of his life. Every road trip felt charged. Every opposing crowd carried an undercurrent of uncertainty. He could feel the tension even when people smiled. He knew what he represented. He knew what he threatened. And he knew he had no choice but to keep going. That season ended with Hank Aaron sitting at 713 home runs, one short, one swing away. The off-season offered no relief. The anticipation only intensified. The letters continued. The threats did not stop. Aaron spent the winter trying to live normally with his family, away from the game. But the weight followed him. He later described the experience as isolating, not because people weren't around him, but because no one else could carry the burden for him. Opening day, 1974, arrived. Hank Aaron homered in his first game of the season, tying Babe Ruth at 714. The moment was historic, but it was not joyful in the way milestones are often remembered. It felt cautious, guarded, incomplete, because now the next swing would change history forever. That swing came on April 8, 1974, in Atlanta against the Los Angeles Dodgers. In the fourth inning, Aaron stepped to the plate. The pitcher delivered. Hank swung. The ball carried. The stadium froze. Then it cleared the fence. Home run number 715. The crowd erupted. Fans ran onto the field. Two young men, later remembered more kindly than feared, ran alongside Aaron as he rounded the bases. Security moved quickly. The moment passed in seconds. But the meaning lingered. Hank Aaron had broken Babe Ruth's record, and in doing so, he had shattered one of baseball's most deeply held myths. Aaron touched home plate and returned to the dugout. There was no dramatic celebration, no raised fists, no defiance, just relief. Later, he would say that the happiest moment of his career was not hitting 715. It was hitting 716, because it meant the chase was finally over. That detail tells you everything you need to know about Hank Aaron. He did not enjoy being hunted by history. He endured it. The season continued. Aaron finished his career with 755 home runs, a record that would stand for decades. But even after the milestone passed, the emotional toll remained. The letters did not disappear overnight. The scars did not fade quickly. What people saw on the field was strength. What they did not see was exhaustion. And yet, Hank Aaron never allowed bitterness to define him. He did not retreat into anger. He did not use his pain as a weapon. He returned to the quiet version of himself that had carried him this far. Consistency, grace, endurance. This part of the story matters because it reframes greatness. It reminds us that some victories are not celebrated loudly. They are survived. Hank Aaron did not just break a record. He carried a nation's unresolved tension across his shoulders and set it down gently. Chapter 3. After the Record. Living Past the Moment. After Hank Aaron hit home run number 715, the world exhaled. For everyone else, the chase was over. For Hank Aaron, something else began. The weeks after breaking Babe Ruth's record were strange and disorienting. The pressure that had defined his daily existence for years suddenly evaporated, leaving behind an unfamiliar quiet. For a man who had spent his life moving forward, season after season, swing after swing, stillness felt unnatural. Aaron continued to play. He continued to hit. He continued to do his job with the same steady professionalism he had always shown. But something fundamental had shifted. The target was gone. In interviews later in life, Aaron spoke about how little joy he felt immediately after breaking the record. Not because the achievement lacked meaning, but because the emotional toll had been so heavy for so long that relief felt more like fatigue than celebration. Great moments are often imagined as peaks. For Hank Aaron, it felt like a long descent. He finished the 1974 season with 733 home runs and continued playing into the mid-1970s, eventually retiring in 1976 with 755 career home runs, a mark that stood for more than 3 decades. But numbers alone never captured who Hank Aaron was. His true legacy was built on durability. He played 23 Major League seasons. He appeared in 25 All-Star games. He accumulated more total bases than any player in history. Yet he was never loud, never theatrical, never careless with words. After retirement, Hank Aaron stepped into leadership roles within baseball. He worked in front offices. He advocated for diversity in management and coaching. He spoke thoughtfully about opportunity and access, often emphasizing that progress required patience and persistence rather than spectacle. He did not position himself as a symbol. Others did that for him. Aaron understood something many athletes struggle with. Life after greatness requires adjustment. The applause fades. The routines change. The calendar opens up in ways it never did before. Hank filled that space with purpose rather than nostalgia. He stayed involved, but not consumed. One of the most telling aspects of Aaron's post-playing life was his refusal to dwell on bitterness. Despite the threats, the hatred, and the fear he endured, he chose not to let anger define his later years. He acknowledged the pain, but he did not relive it. That choice was deliberate. When asked about the record years later, Aaron often shifted the conversation away from numbers and toward context. He spoke about teammates, about family, about the importance of showing up day after day. He wanted people to understand that greatness was not a single moment. It was a habit. As time passed, baseball itself changed. New generations arrived. Records fell. Debates emerged. But Hank Aaron's place remained secure, not just as a home run king, but as a model of sustained excellence under extraordinary pressure. When his record was eventually surpassed, Aaron responded with grace. He congratulated the new record holder and reminded the public that the game moves forward. That response mattered. It showed that he never saw the record as ownership. He saw it as stewardship. Hank Aaron passed away on January 22, 2021, at the age of 86. Tributes poured in from across the sports world and beyond. Presidents spoke. Players remembered. Fans reflected. But perhaps the most fitting tributes were the quiet ones. The stories from teammates and friends who remembered his kindness, his consistency, and his refusal to let hatred harden him. Hank Aaron's story is often told as a record chase, but it is better understood as a study in endurance. He endured pressure without spectacle. He endured hatred without retaliation. He endured history without surrendering himself to it. That kind of strength is rare, and it lingers long after the cheers stop. Chapter 4. What endures when the crowd goes home? When Hank Aaron stepped away from baseball, the game continued, but it did so differently. For decades, baseball had celebrated loud moments, towering home runs, dramatic gestures, explosive personalities. Hank Aaron changed that rhythm. He showed that greatness could be steady, that excellence could be quiet, that history could be carried without demanding to be noticed. After his retirement, Aaron never sought to rewrite his own story. He didn't chase documentaries. He didn't frame himself as a hero. He allowed time to do what it does best. He let perspective settle. As the years passed, historians and fans began to understand the full weight of what he had endured. The letters he received, the threats he absorbed, the isolation he carried through the most visible years of his life. What struck many people was not that he broke Babe Ruth's record. It was that he survived the process with his dignity intact. Hank Aaron represented a different kind of courage. Not the kind that shouts, not the kind that confronts loudly, but the kind that shows up every day, does the work, and refuses to be pushed off course. That kind of courage doesn't photograph well, but it lasts. When baseball honored Aaron later in life, the ceremonies were warm and respectful. Stadiums stood. Applause rolled through crowds. But even then, Aaron remained reserved. He accepted praise politely, briefly, and then stepped aside. He never believed the game belonged to him. He believed he belonged to the game. In the final years of his life, Hank Aaron became something more than a former athlete. He became a reference point, a reminder, a standard. When debates arose about records, pressure, or fairness, his name surfaced not as a weapon, but as an example. How did Hank handle it? People would ask. And the answer was always the same. He endured. Aaron once said that his greatest fear during the record chase wasn't failing. It was what success would cost him. That fear was not unfounded. But what history shows us now is that he paid the price and still emerged whole. Hank Aaron's legacy is not just written in numbers. It is written in restraint, in patience, in the decision to remain human while history demanded something larger. When he passed away in 2021, tributes emphasized his achievements. But beneath the statistics, another truth became clear. Hank Aaron had given baseball a lesson it needed: that greatness does not require noise, that records can be broken without breaking the person who breaks them, that sometimes the strongest thing a man can do is keep moving forward quietly. Grandpa's closing. So tonight, kiddo, as the rain keeps falling softly outside and the world grows still, remember Hank Aaron. Remember that strength doesn't always raise its voice, that courage doesn't always announce itself, that history is sometimes carried by people who never asked to hold it. Some heroes arrive loudly, others simply stay. Hank Aaron stayed. Sleep now. The stadium lights are off, the crowd has gone home, and the rain will keep watch through the night. Good night.